Today, lesson 18b, solving multi-step equations with rational numbers. This is the third time we've returned to this idea of solving multi-step equations. We've done it with integers, we've done it with positive and negative decimals, which was the beginning of rational numbers, and now we return solving equations with positive and negative fractions. So, the way that we went about solving equations with both integers and decimals, the same applies for today. A little bit of background knowledge. Remember, this is what we do when we're solving a two-step equation. Sometimes the answer we end up with ends up being an integer. In other words, it comes out even when we do the division. Sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, the easiest thing to do is to convert it to a mixed number. I know I've been giving you problems where I've made you write it then as a decimal as well. But if you're not asked to, then we're done. Here's another one where we would need to subtract 9 from both sides, then divide both sides by 7, and 32 divided by 7 ends up turning into 4 and 4/7. Everything we do in both of those problems, that's the same way that we go about trying to solve a problem like number 1. So, number 1, what would I do first to solve this? Angel.
I don't know.
Jermaine.
Add 6 to both sides.
Add 6 to both sides. We're doing the inverse operation there. Also remember that we talked about trying to create 0, which was the additive inverse property. And so now, on the left-hand side, I have 2/3 n, and on the right-hand side, I have 28. Now, look. When we're trying to solve an equation like this, it's no different than if we had something like this. 5x equals 121. If I'm solving 5x equals 121, I want to divide both sides by 5. Several reasons. One is because 5x means 5 times x, and the inverse property to multiplying is dividing. The other reason is because, remember, we talked about trying to make 1 right there. Well, that's the same idea that we use when we go about trying to solve 2/3 n equals 28. We want to divide both sides by 2/3, and this is where you should be taking very good notes. Now, I know for a few of you that looks funny and it looks a lot different than what I did right here, but it's exactly the same thing. In this 5x equals 121, I divided both sides by 5. In the 2/3 n equals 20, I divided both sides by 2/3. Over here, we divided both sides by 5 so that I maintained the fact that I wanted to make 1 right there. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Well, over here, what's 2/3 divided by 2/3? What is it? It's 1. Anytime you divide a number by itself, you end up with 1 right there. So we end up with n, or 1n, on the left-hand side. But now I need to figure out what this 28 over 2/3, or 28 divided by 2/3 is. Here's what I need everybody to do right here. Read along with me what that means. 28 divided by 2/3. Let's say that again. 28 divided by 2/3. Let's say it one more time. 28 divided by 2/3. Write down what you just said. Write that down, what you just said, off to the side somewhere. As a math problem. I guess I should have specified. You just said 3 times with me, 28 divided by 2/3. Does that look like this? Yes or no?
No.
No. That says 2/3 divided by 28. This 28 over 2/3 does not mean that. It means 28 divided by 2/3. That's what this means. Can everybody please figure out what 28 divided by 2/3 is? If it makes you feel better, put a 1 underneath of the 28. In other words, turn it into a fraction. We have to turn 28 divided by 2/3 into a multiplication problem. So that's 28 over 1 times 3 over 2. We try and do some cross dividing if I can, and I can. And so 14 over 1 times 3 over 1 is 42. So my solution is n equals 42. The thing that you need to make sure of is this. You need to make sure that you write that correctly, which looks like that. And then from there, figure out the answer to that division problem right there. So one more time. I divide both sides by 2/3. I then need to figure out what 28 divided by 2/3 is, turn it into a multiplication, cross divide where you can, and then simplify. Okay, everybody try number 2. So here's what we need to do. We need to subtract 14 from both sides. We made 0 right there, so they cancel each other out. On the left-hand side, we have 7/10 n. On the right-hand side, negative 21 minus 14. We've probably done 1,000 problems where we've had to solve problems like negative 21 minus 14. From there, we want to divide both sides by 7/10. We made 1 on the left-hand side. That's good. So now we have n equals, and remember, do not write this like this, because that's not what this means. This means the negative 35 divided by 7/10, because just like when we converted from fractions to decimals, it's top number, that's the top number, divided by bottom number. This is the bottom number. Make sure that you write it correctly. And then from there, turn it into a multiplication problem. Cross divide where you can. Don't lose the negative symbol. We should get a solution of negative 50. All right, everybody try number 3. Now number 3, the number on the right-hand side is a fraction this time, but it does not change what you do. We need to add 1 to both sides. That's fairly obvious. Hopefully it is anyway. We made 0 on the left-hand side, so now I have 1/3 n equals, you have 2 choices here. You either realize that 5/6 plus 1 is 1 and 5/6, which hopefully you do. If you didn't realize that, you could find a common denominator and do all that stuff, but you should realize that 1 plus 5/6 is 1 and 5/6. Now I need to turn that into an improper fraction, and so that's what's going to go right here. And then from there, I need to divide both sides by 1/3. I made 1 right here. So now I need to figure out what 11 over 6 divided by 1/3 is. Top number divided by bottom number. Change it to a multiplication problem. Cross divide where you can. We end up with 11 over 2, but as most of you got, a solution that is equal to 5 1/2 for n. Any questions with number 3? All right, everybody try number 4.
Please excuse the interruption. Students, you need to...
All right, so let's take a look at this one. We should subtract 2/5 from both sides. We made 0 on the left-hand side, so now we have 1/5 n equals, now we need to figure out what that is. 2/3 minus 2/5. Common denominator is 15. So we've got 10/15. And that gives me 4/15. So that is the part that goes up here. From here, we need to divide both sides by 1/5. And I end up with n equals, because I made 1 over there, and now I need to figure out what 4/15 divided by 1/5 is. So we have 4/15. It's top number divided by bottom number. That turns into 4/15 times 5 over 1. Cross divide where you can. I end up with 4 over 3, which is 1 1/3, and that is what most of you got for that one. All right, let's go to the back side. Everybody please do number 5 and number 6. and then we will compare both of those with our shoulder partner. Once again, do number 5 and number 6. All right, number 5, we need to add 1/2 to both sides. I know that's obvious. I made 0 right there. Now I have 3/10 n equals. I need to figure out what 2/5 plus 1/2 is. I don't have a lot of room here. I know that that is 9/10. I found that by finding the common denominator and doing all that stuff. From there, I need to divide both sides by 3/10. I made my 1 over here, so now I know n is equal to. Now I need to figure out what 9/10 divided by 3/10 is. Now I'm kind of short on room, so I'm just going to take the 9/10, which should be written first anyway, and write my divided by 3/10 right there. So I need to turn that into a multiplication problem. So 9/10 times 10/3. Cross divide where I can, and I can do a lot of it right there. And I end up with a solution of n equals 3. Any questions on number 5? All right. Number 6, same thing. Subtract 2 from both sides. I wanted to make 0 right there, and I did. On the left-hand side, I have 1/7 n. On the right-hand side, I need to find a common denominator and do all of that stuff. But when I subtract those two numbers, I end up with negative 12/7. Negative 1 5/7, which is negative 12/7. Okay? I now need to divide both sides by 1/7. And once again, I'm a little short on room here. So I'm going to write the divided by 1/7 right there. And now I have negative 12/7. I have to change that to a multiplication problem. So that looks like this. I can do a little bit of cross dividing, and I end up with a solution of n equals negative 12. Any questions on either one of these problems? All right, we are